I'm now going to introduce our moderator for the day, Mr. Iqbal Khirodawala from Printline Reproductions. You all know him. He's the president of the BMPA, and he's got along with him six COVID positives. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what this COVID positives is all about. I'm not going to take much of your time. Iqbal Bhai, please explain us what this session is about and what's going on.
Thank you, Fahim. Uh, Friends, good afternoon and a very happy new year. We welcome you to the BMPA webinar on COVID positives. And as Fahim said, let me first explain to you why I chose this name for our webinar. Before I begin, I would like all of you to go to your top right-hand corner. There is a view button. Please press it and select speaker view. The reason I'm telling you is because there are 6 speakers and some of them are also going to use a PowerPoint presentation. So if you have the speaker view, not only will you be able to enjoy those sessions more, but you will be able to understand their point of view better. Now let me get back to why I call this COVID positives. Over the last 10 plus months, the world has gone through a huge flux. Each one of us has been affected in some way or the other. Apart from a sea change in our approach to our way of life, we have also felt a strong need to review our way of business. Before COVID struck the world, our industry was already going through a bit of a turmoil, but the lockdown, as well as the home returning of the migrant workers, the shutdown of the transport systems, the lack of raw materials, and the constant worry of infection of our workers have made things much worse. I will share with you some small data which will give you a very a fair idea of what I'm talking about. What are the key challenges faced by most of the industry? Now, this is not pertaining to the packaging and the commercial industry, but this is the general industry in India. Lack of raw materials. 18% of the people complained that there was lack of raw material to run their factories. Productivity loss. All of us are knowing about this. Nearly 25% of us, we lost our productivity. Insufficient labor, though this says 20%, but I know that in the beginning this was much worse. See the surprising thing, reduction in orders, the all India figure says just 8%. Now this could be very well true of the packaging industry, but a lot of other industries suffered a lot more. And of course, transport issues, which all of us are aware about. Now, worrisome financial pressures. Working capital constraints, 33%. Payment of salaries to workers, 27%. EMI payments, 21%. In progress, capital expansion. A lot of us had planned for the new India story, and COVID just stopped all that. So a lot of us had gone partly into capital expansion, but because of COVID and the lack of clarity as to when it will end and how long it will continue has really put this on a hold. I'm sure 2021 is going to change things. Now, the financial actions planned by businesses. Again, these are all India figures, but yet very close to what we will also be experiencing. 37.6% of all of us are implementing cost containment initiatives, a no-brainer. 28.9% are deferring or canceling planned investments. Now, the reason I am specifying the second point is 29% of industries in India are deferring or canceling planned investments. 25.8% are modifying the company financing plans. Now, the fun part is, in such a scenario, what our industry actually needs is some sunshine at the end of this dark tunnel. Today, I have got those exact people who have not really been bothered about COVID. They did not bother during the pandemic and have no intention of letting their growth be affected by the situation even post-pandemic. What drives them is the long-term planning which their businesses have followed through the last so many years. They used this pandemic to hone their current strengths. They looked at their weaknesses and took some strong decisions. They looked at how COVID could be turned over to their advantage. As they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Let me share with you my personal experience of talking to them on a one-to-one basis. Each one of them, without exception, had some common issues, but they came up with common answers. All of them never thought, even during the peak of the pandemic, that the future looked bleak and businesses would suffer. In spite of the naysayers sounding the death knell for packaging, digital, merchandising, and other products of the printing industry, These 6 panelists today continued their plans for growth, for upskilling of their workers. This is a very interesting word, upskilling of workers. I am going to be talking a lot more on this during our talk, and for changing the way they look at customers and their service. My questions, I will go through all my questions which I put to them, which I will of course share with you before we move ahead. The questions were general, but I will be delving in deep on certain points which I found them to be extremely strong on. That particular answer will allow you all to look deep into their way of thinking and make you wonder why you never thought of it. Let me allow them to inspire you with their clarity of thought and their focus on their businesses. So I again request you all to put on to speaker view so that you can see each of the speakers and understand what they are strong about. Let me introduce each one of them individually. So as I announce them, can I please request that participant to please switch on their video. My first participant is Tejas Tanna, who is a bachelor in print media from Rochester Institute of Technology, MBA in Family Managed Business Administration from NMIMS. Printmen, his company, are manufacturers of printed packaging material, monocartons, pressure sensitive labels, leaflets, and blister foils. Tejas has been a director at Printman since 15 years, and his key functions are operations, quality assurance, marketing and sales, and new product developments. My next panelist is Anuj Bhargava, who is an MS in Engineering and Management. Anuj is a director at Kumar Labels, a company which he founded in 2007, and where he handles a very interesting portfolio of people development and training. Kumar Label, of course, produces embellished labels, manufactures label stocks, and also produces converting machines. With innovation as the key focus, they cater to the Alcobev industry, which is the alcohol and beverage industry, and have been granted multiple patents for new labeling technologies. My third panelist is Milab Shah, who's master's in computer science from Stanford. He is the CTO and CMO at Printstops in the last 14 years. Printstop is an online printing company which now wants to change, and he wants to be a complete solution provider. They want to transform the print procurement process in large enterprises. My next panelist is Kashyap Purohit, who is a qualified industrial engineer from Rutgers University, US, Master of Science in Graphic Communication from Keene University, US. He's a director for the last 9 years at Surya Offset and Security Printers, Ahmedabad. They are into commercial printing and security printing, integration of IT with customized solutions, and life cycle management of products. Again, please read this last line, life cycle management of products. We never think of our products from conception to delivery, whereas Kashyap's company looks at the entire lifestyle management of any product. Denver Annunciation, who's an MBA and a director of strategy at Janus International Private Limited. Janus is a multi-facility company with a foot in offset, flexo, as well as digital. He's played it safe. They provide labels, cartons, as well as digital solutions. In short, they are packaging solution providers. And my last panelist is Vivek Khanna, who is a director of finance and marketing at Ajanta Print Art since the last 20 years. He is a national diploma holder in material science and packaging. Ajanta specializes in cartons, point of sale displays, and playing cards with a special emphasis on food packaging. So with these introductions in place, let me get out of my sharing. Excuse me. Tejas, how do I stop the sharing? Yep, there I go. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, a lovely good afternoon to all of you. Let me first share with my audience the questions that I had raised to you. So my questions to you have been, the pandemic has made us rethink our long-term business plans. What changes have you now made to your long-term growth and investment plans? My second question was, is our investment strategy going to change post the pandemic? Do you feel that investment should now be in CRM, ERPs, and logistics? If yes, can you share with us as to what should be a foolproof strategy? My third question was, the situation before COVID was on innovation, creativity, and value addition. does this matter anymore? Should a converter be more bothered about retention of customers, employees, and margins? My next question to you was, we all keep talking about the new normal. What exactly is the new normal? And please elaborate on strategies which will be a no brainer. And my last question to you was, if I'm a young entrepreneur who decides to join my father's business today, after this COVID rubbish, what are the must haves in terms of business planning, future goals, and investment strategy? पहले क्या था भाई, father's business, you had to be suitably qualified. Your father decided to start the business and he wanted you to be super qualified. I believe now the situation has changed. Qualifications have to be completely different because of the new normal. So let me start with Anuj first. Anuj, during my discussion with you, to my question as to the pandemic that has made us rethink our long-term business plans, you had a very interesting take. So can you please tell us what exactly happened with you during the pandemic and what are you thinking post-pandemic?
Hi, everyone. Happy to join the Mumbai Walas. I'm the only Delhi Wala around here, it looks like. So pandemic was obviously, as to always, it was a shock. And we, like Iqbalji mentioned, we were producing 80% liquor labels. And guess what? Liquor was banned for up until almost towards the middle of June. So we were pretty much out of business for a good long time. But we, like they say, marta kya na karta. So we figured a way out. So our plans initially up until the year before were to have a much larger facility at our Greater Noida base. We were just about to place orders with our contractor to start building the facility next door. Just as this situation happened, our customers who were in different parts of the country realized that that they wanted us to be closer to them. And just as the market opened, we realized one of the very quick things that we need to do is to be multi-locational. So during the pandemic, I remember it was March 31st. I went to the factory, everything was shut. I was the only person there. And we decided, I decided at that very moment that we need to be closer to the customer. And we planned a facility in Goa. So everything was planned, everything was done. And the moment the transportation opened, we were able to send truckloads of material, machines, and we were able to set up very quickly a facility, a very tiny facility in Goa, which brought us very close to our customer geographically. So I think one of the things to your question, that how our long-term strategy, which was to be at one place to enjoy the economies of scale, that just went off, and immediately we were forced to set up ancillary, small sort of a unit very close to our customer, next door to our customer. The next thing I think in terms of long-term plans that changed, we were planning on some brand new machines, very high speed, a lot of embellishments in one go, and very expensive machines. And we were trying to raise some money from the bank, take some debt. I think that was, thank God that our debt levels were very manageable before the lockdown, and even today, that through the lockdown, our cash flows were manageable. And with that, we decided not to buy just that one big gigantic machine, but we invested the same amount, but we invested in smaller, more agile machines, which could do more, and one person could run more machines and manage it better. So that's those are two major things that we did. Besides that, we were allowed to work only with 20 people in a factory which normally used to have 150 people. So very quickly, in just few days, the person who used to run our Flexo printing machine was taught how to run, the flatbed die cutter. The die cutter operator was trained on running the camera inspection. So these were things which although our team is quite reasonably multi-skilled, but I think the levels that were required were not there. So that multi-skilling happened as we went through the pandemic, and I'm glad. I mean, otherwise with 20 people, we would not have been able to do it. And I think third, I mean, the last I would say is not in terms of investment, but bringing some diversity to our customer base. I think we learned that was a big. I mean, we were very, very heavily dependent on the Alcobev industry. So very quickly, and everyone was looking for suppliers at that point. And so our sales team, while they were working from home, they were able to tap into some new customers and get some new business, which was from the non-Alcobev markets. So I think broadly that's what we did, and God's been kind, and we've survived.
So Anuj, I think the learning from Kumar Labels has been very clear that you cannot be focused only on one sector. I think that's a major learning that all of us have had, because there were certain businesses which were absolutely foolproof. Alcohol, I mean, I can't imagine anybody even a few months back saying that bhai wo khana peena band ho jayega. Khana bhi chalu raha, peena bhi chalu raha. But the whole thing is that the dynamics changed. And I think that is something that's been a huge lesson for you, because you spoke to me that you moved into the sanitizer business, because all of us, irrespective of whether we were drinking or not, वो business आपके पास आता था या नहीं आता था मालूम नहीं, but at least sanitizer तो हम ले रहे हैं. So at least that is one business that you've been able to crack, right? And same thing with food.
But
I think what, yes.
I'll interrupt you. You have to admire our focus.
Yeah.
We were still in alcohol business.
That's true.
Right? So
You just changed. You just changed the delivery mode. You just brought it about 2-3 feet below. Idhar se haath tak bas, that's it. And you spoke about multi-skilling. How successful were you in multi-skilling? The same question I'm going to be raising to the others also. But I just want you to just describe how multi-skilling will help. See, aapke paas, I think you spoke about 150 people odd that you had. But for a smaller company, which is say maybe 30 people, and people just disappeared, this multi-skilling is something that should be now looked at in the long run. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and that's, I think, an industry challenge that we have, whether pandemic or not. Generally, so as an engineer and as a, as someone who loves production, I know how to run all my machines.
Brilliant.
So, I mean, I don't say everyone should do that. I mean, it's not the greatest things. I get too involved in things which I should not always be. But multi-skilling was very difficult. We had someone who was not used to running a die machine, and we asked him to do it, and next 2 days he didn't show up because he was upset. So I think pandemic was not just about managing skills, it was about managing tempers, managing emotions of people. So as an incentive for those 22 people rather who stayed in the factory for the whole month, we paid them 25% additional bonus salary, and paid overtime on top of that. Overnight set up a canteen so that food could be cooked, and moved away all our furniture from our office and created those into rooms for those people to stay. So yes, I mean, there were challenges. People some of them didn't like the food. Some of them didn't like, the training, but.
Yeah, but well, that's part and parcel. You also mentioned that you decided to go digital. So what made you think about going digital during the pandemic?
So we haven't completely gone digital. We have placed some orders for machines that are coming. But I think digital is something that we were not in, and I understand the need of a press, digital press, which can essentially be run on its own. And I envision, a factory with maybe 20 digital presses and a large dashboard, and the customers, log in from a website and place their orders. The machines start printing, and essentially you have like 2, 3, 4 people who run a digital facility. I hope I'm able to do it someday.
Yeah, sure. And you think that there is nothing like a new normal? The normal continues, huh? As far as the business outlook is concerned, or is there something called a new normal?
I think so. I think there are certain things that have changed, and they've changed for the good. I think Our customers were very hesitant earlier to be speaking to us online, and now it's very easy. A lot of brand owners were extremely, extremely unrealistically finicky about certain shades and colors and quality parameters, I would say non-achievable ones. So those guys have softened up. And I think there is a new normal for sure, but like it's great. I mean, you travel less, you spend more time with family, and we've done
And
all
sing
of.
songs. And sing songs.
Oh yeah.
I'll get back to you, Anuj, on this. I have a
Right.
couple of more questions to come back to. Let me shake Tejas up a bit. Uh, Tejas, you said that you have made certain changes in your production processes to ensure that the product runs better at the manufacturer's end. So, how do you think that's going to help the end user of your products? You're on mute, my friend.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So in this pandemic, we always had this idea of making an innovation center. So which was not obviously happening. But in this pandemic, we got together, we created a team, we hired one packaging expert where we were developing products along with the machine manufacturers, and kind of the products were developed in such a way that we used to actually run on their machines, and then finally once it was running on their machine, we were sending it to a customer's end so that it could run well on their machines. So the whole idea was to work as a tri-party where we are working with the manufacturers of the machine manufacturers as well as the customer, and then finally when it reaches at the customer end, it runs well.
You made a very interesting point there. You said that up till the pandemic, there was a huge over dependence rather on senior people, and you had a big lesson there you learned. So I really want to know how you reduce, because see, all of us are so used to certain people in our factory that we generally, I mean, they know our products, but this pandemic taught us that that doesn't really work all the time. So what actually happened, and how did you come out of your over dependence on your senior people, and as we said, upskilled the younger people?
So I wouldn't say we were over dependent on the senior people, but yeah, definitely the senior people were important. They are still important. But what generally happened in the pandemic, there was a fear. If the people who were like, above 50, there was a fear to come to the factory. So the family pressure was there. So that was a time where we realized that we need to even upskill the people who are underneath, who have been in our company since 3 to 5 years, and we try to give them a free hand, developed a team under obviously our guidance, where even they got the confidence to run the factory when the senior people are not there. Generally, what happened is the senior people were obviously taking the calls, and the younger people are not getting developed. So that bridge was there between the young people and us, which went away in the pandemic. So that was a time where they got the chance and they worked brilliantly. I mean, when you throw them in the pool, they could actually swim through it. So that was a brilliant time for them to realize their potential.
I think the pandemic played a huge role in we appreciating a lot of people whom they were always on the sidelines. There were a lot of people who actually stood by us during these tough times. They chose to leave their families and stay with us, work with us. And I think that's been a huge credit to those people who decided that I mean, loyalty is, of course, a very important factor, but this is, what sort of separated the good from the really good. You made a very, I mean, two points you made, which I really would like to share with the people. You said the pandemic made you realize that you needed to now start marketing. That was one thing that you said. And the second thing you said, that you now decided that you need to have more products from the same machine. Now, there is a big learning in both these points. A lot of people are slightly complacent, especially, those who are second generation printers or those who are already sitting in a huge infrastructure. The pandemic has made them realize that marketing needs to be done, a little more radical marketing for different kinds of products. So that is one. And I actually want to understand what you mean by saying that you get into more products using the same machinery.
So, first of all, so we are very over dependent on the pharma sector. As Anuj also rightly said, we are predominantly a pharma player. So we kept adding the products which was required for the pharma segment. So we were into cartons, then we got into leaflets, then we got into labels, then we got into blister foils. So all these products. In this pandemic, we realized that if the segment, if one entire sector goes down, all our products go down. So it was the first time we realized that all our four products was not doing well. So that was a time when we actually got a marketing representative, and what his job was to not enter into pharma segment. What was happening is our marketing was always a word of mouth, because one customer from the procurement team or the packaging development goes to another company, they like our service, so they come to us. So it was just a word of mouth, and we kept developing over the period of years. We never had marketing. The marketing was handled by the top management for so many years. This is the first time we have actually invested in marketing, and obviously it's too early to talk about it, but I think the fruit will come. So we are focused. And if you asked me the second question about multiple products, so what I meant was not having the same machine to have to print different products, but to combine the two products and give as a single product to the customer. So, for example, we do cartons and we do leaflets, and it is running on the customer's end on the cartonator machine. So what the customer does is the carton is running, the leaflet is coming through one delivery channels. What we are doing is, on a machine, we are embedding the two and giving the customer a single product, so they can ramp up their production and they don't need to buy carton and leaflet from two different vendors. So that is what that is what value we are giving to our customers. Similarly, we are doing labels, we are doing leaflets. So so there are certain specialized products where we are applicating the label on the leaflets and giving the customer a single product, so they can have more information, and it's a single product. So that is what we are doing, and that helps because we have multiple products, so we can mix and match and give customer what they want.
So I think what you're trying to say is that post the pandemic, all of us have realized that the innovation and the creativity has just changed its shape and structure. So instead of just sort of making new different kinds of products with different varnishes, with different feels and different textures, we have now decided that the customer has to make his own life easier so that he comes back to us. All of us realize that the customers who are a little far away from us actually had a huge problem because transportation made everything so difficult for them to access our products. We need to do something more for the customer to wait for us. So if Kumar can go, if Anuj can go closer to the customer, what you can do is offer a product which has so much value and makes his life so much easier that he's willing to wait. Now, the same question that I asked Anuj, do you think that there is a new normal, or you think that it's the same thing with just a small hiccup on the way?
Iqbal, I think we've lost. You can probably go to the next person.
One, that what you've done. Am I there?
Iqbal, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Tejas, your video is frozen. So are you having some network issues? Never mind. If you can, yes, I will do that. I will do that. Tejas, by the time your audio and video gets back, I will come back to you with these next questions. Let me get to Milap now.
Yeah.
So Milap, you're wearing a print stop t-shirt and you're making your intentions very clear.
Every opportunity you get.
Yes, exactly. Milap, you made a very interesting comment the other day when I was speaking to you that the pandemic, and of course, even pre-pandemic, you decided that you did not want to be now called a printer, though of course your name starts with it, but still you would like to redefine as to how you're recognized. So
Yeah.
what were the lessons in the pandemic? You were amongst the few converters, I would say blessed and lucky, who actually could stay away from your company for a much longer time than all of us could, especially the pharma guys and the food guys had to rush back to their factories, but you had the luxury to operate from wherever you were based. So now, what does PrintStop bring as new post the pandemic?
Sure. Let me quickly give you a high level on how we handled the pandemic. So we were, of course, also very, very impacted by the pandemic. Our primary clientele are B2B large corporates, and we used to supply a lot of print material, whether it was stationery, marketing collateral, to these companies. And in the pandemic, all these offices are shut down, and they are still shut down. So our business got impacted in a big way. But as far as our offices and people were concerned, we very quickly ramped up to a complete work from home scenario. In fact, in the entire 8 months, I've been to office net 3 times. I haven't been to office at all other than 3 times. It's not because I'm not needed or something, but the way we were able to structure is that we have a production team of about 50 odd people, but we couldn't get everybody back. So we started off with about 20 people staying in office, converting that into a quarantine facility. And by the way, that quarantine facility is operational till date because Bombay locals haven't started. It's just 2 days ago in our town hall, we announced that starting 1st of February, we're going to have a staggered reopening starting as women are allowed on trains. We are hoping that by that time, men also will be allowed on trains and things like that. All the office people were empowered to work from home, and we were using various technologies to make things work. So this is how pretty much we kind of handled the pandemic working and all. The first 2 months were very bad because paper usage was almost not there, transportation issues and everything was there. What happened during the pandemic is that it forced us to or actually go to other avenues which we had in our plans. I mean, not today possibly, but maybe a year down, 2 years, and you always procrastinate. That abhi kaam ho raha hai to karte hai, but we'll get to it. The pandemic actually helped us expedite and do things which we had planned a few years down the line. So, for example, we wanted to diversify beyond paper, and we had set it up the seeds of it last year by hiring a sourcing head, merchandising head to get into that. But those were slow movements happening. During the pandemic, we completely put into high gear, and today 50% of my sales are non-paper on merchandising. We could get a lot of customers because of that. And in fact, newer customers we achieved because we got into these different sectors. So some other things like we basically operate online platforms for our customers to operate. So we create basically large companies who are our customers. They have an online portal where they order stuff. What we always thought is that we are just giving them a medium to easily order stuff, but we were never kind of using that or leveraging that. Now during the pandemic, we are more than sure that we are a technology company and not a printing company, and we have in fact started monetizing that. Starting the pandemic, we have started charging customers for the platform and gone beyond that, wherein the people want to now use the platform to procure things beyond printed stuff through their vendors using our platform. So our start journey to move on from a printer to a technology company was there, but the pandemic kind of made sure that we are definitely going that way. So if that kind of gives you an answer.
Milap, you made an interesting comment about now complete focus on customer centricity.
Yeah.
Now, a word like customer centricity is a no-brainer. I mean, all of us are working in order to make money. So for us, the revenue comes from the customer. Why do you call your customer centricity a little different? Because you did discuss with me about not just simply listening to the customer, but doing a lot more. So could you just please elaborate on what exactly you mean by the PrintStop focus on customer centricity?
Sure, I can. In fact, I do have a small deck also. If you want, I can take us through that, or I can just talk about it.
Just a second, Milap, while you are doing your share screen, I would request all the audience, anybody who has a question, to please put it on the Q&A box. If we have the time in the end, we will try and ask those specific questions. So please also put as to who you want that question to be addressed to. Fahim, I'll request you to please look at the Q&A and curate and moderate the question. So after we finish, I will request you to ask the specific questions to the panelists. Yes, Milap, over to you.
So if there was one thing that I would say which helped us sail through this pandemic, I would say it's customer centricity. And let me tell you that I also myself, like you said, that everybody is customer centric. I myself was very naive to believe that customer wants something and I'm providing it to him. So that is customer centricity. उसने जो कुछ भी मांगा है, जैसे भी मांगा है, मैंने अच्छे से दे दिया. That's customer centricity. But and this is, you will hear in every forum, every guru talking about it, every seminar you go to, and you will end up believing, and I believed it for a major part of what I felt. And then I started realizing that there is a lot more to it. What happens is that each of our customers, no matter the size that they are not individual silos. There are a lot of interdependent teams and processes who are at work. Now you are helping a particular team with a particular need. That particular team or need goes into somewhere else. Like Tejas was mentioning, for example, the cartonator and the leafleting, he could make it better for a future department, a department just going on the next step. And that's why the customer could find a thing that Tejas is adding value. Now, a couple of examples that I have here is, for example, one of our customers, we do, for example, printing of business cards and ID cards, 200 transactions a month. Imagine submitting 200 invoices, each valued at 200 rupees to the customer. He's going to go mad. His accounts team is going to go mad. So we had to talk to the customer, understand how we can improve. So at what we developed in our systems, at the month end, automated invoices based on your cost center will be generated and given to you. So if he has 3 departments, you get 3 invoices at the month end. So what work you do for a particular department has either a pre or a post improvement which can go further. Most of the time, we are extremely transactional in nature. We'll just talk about what you need. We give you this code and that's the end of it. We don't go deeper before and after. And that's very, very important. I'm sorry. What customer centricity actually means, and this is what I realized maybe last year or so, is to put the customer at the center of every decision that we take. Think on how we can add value to the customer. And by adding value, I don't mean an embellishment, whether I can foil for them, whether I can do this or no. How can we make the life of the customer simple? And believe me, initially I used to look at it only from a print-centric view. But that is actually not true. You have to look at it as an entire ecosystem that the customer, let's say the customer is a bank, then how can I help the person who's buying this product from me to help him either do something before easily or something after easily. To give you one example, we print ID cards for several companies. Now there is a huge pain point for them to collect the data for printing the ID cards, getting the photographs, getting the data. Everybody just randomly says, please print my ID card, here are my details. So we had to develop tools wherein they could very easily get data exported from their HRMS systems. That Excel imported to our system would automatically generate all the artworks. Now, if I was just considering based on the print specifications, I would have never thought about going to that section and asking the customer what his challenges are and how I can add value to them. So thinking from the customer in the center is extremely important. Okay. I have very few simple steps which I have kind of put in order for a company to become customer centric. These are some of the things which we have done. Deliver beyond expectations. If you surprise companies, they will definitely remember you. Don't be transactional. Probe. Ask as many questions as possible, not necessarily related to your domain, before, after, how your product is going to be used, what challenges they face. Make it simple for your customer. If the customer benefits intangibly from your product, they will always remember you. Be very, very responsive. Reply back. Give them solutions. If there is a problem, own it and solve it for them. Seek and measure feedback. This is by far the most important because it's an iterative process. It's not like I can be suddenly customer centric and I'm not. You have to keep on raising the bar for yourself. To give you one simple example, every communication that my customer service team does with a customer is done through an app. I mean, is done through a solution, the customer can leave feedback for him. So at the end of the month, my customer service team has a KPI on how much time they are taking to respond to customers. Are you going to be responding within 2 hours, within 1 hour, within 4 hours? We have given them a KPI score. The customer can also rate the response. Were they unhappy? Were they okay? Or were they happy? So based on the number of tickets the customer gets response and how they rate, my customer service team is rated on it. So if you measure, you will act on it. So every department we have tried to find things. If you come into our office, you will see big boards saying that this month we had these many packages which were delivered on time. This is our customer service score. So everywhere you'll see some data, and every month we keep on announcing these in our town halls and also within our place everywhere. And the last point I have is, if you do this, people will look at you as a customer, as a solution provider, and not as a printer. I definitely don't want to be remembered by anyone saying that तुमने वो GSM अच्छा दिया था, ये Shine अच्छा आया था. No. Anytime a customer has a problem, I'm sure they will remember us rather than how we did a job very well. So,
thank you, Milab. There is one question that we did discuss when we were talking to each other personally, and that was, the print industry has to start looking at themselves now, not in the traditional form. So I will come back to you with that question. I will now go to Denver. Denver, during my talk with you, you mentioned very clearly that nothing has changed. Whether it's a question of investment, whether it's a question of customer, whether it is a question of innovation or whatever, you feel that the pandemic hasn't really changed. You have continued doing what you have, including your investment, like how you were doing. So can you explain why things haven't changed much for you?
Okay, so let me start with what Anuj was saying. We are also predominantly known in the industry as liquor label printers, beer label printers. So when I joined business, we were doing our top line came from the beer industry. But if I look back now, beer doesn't exceed more than 50% of my top line. And the shutdown accelerated this process. But it wasn't that we worked on this in the shutdown. We've been doing this for the last 5 or 6 years. We have made active effort to diversify, to broaden our solutions, broaden our products that we offer our customers. Yes, we are also extremely customer centric. Decisions we take are based on what our customers want. And that's how we make these investments. All the investments that we've made in the last 1 year and just before the shutdown. So just before the shutdown, we got in a new digital, we got in a 9. During the shutdown, we got in a 5-color Heidelberg offset. And all this has happened in the last, I would say, 1 year. And except for the flexo that we got in for the beer industry, the offset, we doubled all our turnovers in those areas we made the investment.
So all you guys are actually the right candidate for this COVID positives session.
Yeah. So this was something that was always in the. It is these other sectors that helped us, get out of the problem that happened to the alcoholic beverage industry, which was zero in those first 3 months. In terms of putting systems, processes, IT, automation, again, we've been 4 years. It just took about a week, the time that it took to send laptops to my people's homes, and that's all it took for us to start our entering data, booking orders, making invoices, whatever need to be.
Denver, you made a very radical statement when you were talking to me, and I am trying to tell everybody that please retain your customers, because this is the time when you're not supposed to lose them. You're supposed to sustain them. Thoda sa samjhao, thoda sa, sort of build a deeper relationship, because you just don't know how long this pandemic will last and how long, this, of course, things are normalizing now, but thoda to fark padega. You were the only person who says that I actually left my old customers and looked out for completely new. You actually literally left those old customers. Why? And what is the logic behind it?
So, I would like to go into a little bit of philosophy here. In fact, it's something that I attended a session a few days ago. And, this management consultant giving the session, and somebody asked him, somebody asked him that, I want to become a millionaire. How do I become a millionaire? And the consultant just replied and said, no, you know what, you cannot want to become one, and therefore you cannot become one. And he went on to say that, the people who are going to make you a millionaire are external to you. They are your workers, they are the environment you're in, they are your customers. They are not you. Therefore you will become a millionaire. And extrapolating from there is that if you do not have good customers in the system, if you have customers that are not contributing to your philosophy or not contributing to your growth, you need to review. These are jobs you need to review. And putting all these systems and analysis and all the CRMs, if these systems do not give you this data, then I think there's something wrong. Got to relook into those systems. It's just not about just measuring product, measuring how fast the material is going out. You need to individually see on a customer basis whether you're making money or not making money. And if you're not making money, you need to review these decisions. If you look at it, customers that have been the longest with us give us the least amount of profit.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Customers is the new customers that come in where we quote as per today's rates and today's material prices. And you will eventually understand it's the new customers that are actually giving you a bottom line and not the old customers. So this is something we need to relook into, because we keep crying, no margins, no margins. And invariably, if you do an analysis, you will go back and see these are the old customers who are doing reverse auctions every year, who are, been there in your system for quite some time, who have caused all the trouble.
Genuine Annunciation, we anoint you as our new guru. Honestly, because this is something, see, all of us are always, even when there are prices that are going up of the paper situation, which is really pathetic now. So हर एक के दिल में एक ही डर होता है कि अगर मैं आज इसको ना बोलूंगा तो ये वापस मेरे पास आने वाला नहीं है, and which is actually a fact. Sometimes the customer, once he finds an option, rarely comes back unless the other guy is a good friend of ours and it screws up so badly that the customer comes back to you. Otherwise, वापस कोई अपने पास आता नहीं है. But yes, I think what you said really made sense. Our older customers rarely allow us to, take advantage of the prices. So I think what you're saying is absolutely right. We have to review this and we have to take a decision, whether it is worth keeping the old customers or saying bye-bye to them and look for new business. Of course, there might be pitfalls to that. There are crazy periods, when it scares you. But in the long run, I think it will help you. The second most wonderful thing, which I also heard from you, is that most of us are measuring data about, the incoming and the outgoing, the productivity, etc., etc. You measure the productivity of your employees. So how has that helped you during this pandemic, and what are the lessons that you feel are necessary for all of us?
So, the measure of productivity can be done through systems, but to get an employee to be motivated to deliver their productivity is not a system at all. It's all on your personal skill. It's how you stand up for them when they are in trouble. Throughout the shutdown, whenever any one of my team was in trouble, we made sure that whether they were in office or they were not coming to work, we made sure that they at least got enough money for buying and did not starve at least. We ensure that we hire people who stay nearby. 80% of my employees go home for lunch or dinner, depending what shift they come in. So they stay that close to the plant. Never had any problem with transportation, never had, worrying about cops stopping them.
But didn't it cause you palpitations? Because we were actually keeping the people to avoid them getting exposed to the virus, We were saying, Baba, andar hi raho, tum bahar jaoge to bimar hoke aoge. So was that not your worry? Or you took the good with the bad?
Not at all, because it was safe. They were not going anywhere. Just home to factory, home to factory. There was nothing else open. There was no, they were not taking a public transport. They were not going to the mall or any public place. So I think it was pretty safe. And yes, I was on a daily basis monitoring, the situation in where they stay, how many cases, what's happening, and it was completely under control. Even some areas in Bombay, the COVID cases are completely under control. It is the high rises where it's going out of hand.
Lovely. Thank you, Denver. I'll come back to you. I have a couple of more questions, but I'll come back to you in the end. We'll now go to Kashyap Purohit. Kashyap has switched off his video. I think he's talking to either Adani or Ambani or maybe Modi or Amit Shah based in Ahmedabad. Kashyap, are you there? We can't see you.
No, I'm here, but
Is there some
I was
issue with your
blocked.
video?
Okay,
Ah,
I'm
there
back
you are.
on.
Lovely. So, Kashyap, you're based in Ahmedabad. Folk season?
Yes.
Is there
Kite season. There is
kite
Uttarayan
season?
going
Yeah,
on.
of course. Kashyap, you are into security printing. You are into textbooks. You are into education. And I think when we discussed, you said that print, like a couple of others, plays a very small role in your business. So I'm going to ask you a very specific question, which we had a nice time chatting. So all of us are talking about virtual offices, whereas you gave me a completely different take on what constitutes a virtual office and which you are doing for your customers. So can you just briefly tell me what exactly you mean by a virtual office for your customers or for even us in the future?
Uh, Thank you so much, first of all. I would like to start with a quote for this specific session. This quote is by Alvin Toffler, which says, "The literate of the 21st century will not be the ones who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." So, many standards, compliances, and technologies have been invented long back. But, the seeding time and the acceptance and its relevance has still some time in the market, which will definitely shape the dynamics of how we interact with each other. So, along these lines, as Iqbal ji had said, I'll be discussing on the virtual office. So, what does this mean for what does it mean for people when we talk about virtual office? Work and specialized people are at the heart of many issues related to globalization and businesses. And businesses are looking at new countries for work nowadays. So technology allows people to collaborate and share information in real time, even if they are not physically together. So when talking about collaboration, we usually think about, this Microsoft Office 360 and ERP systems or some related processes, or use some other collaborative platforms. But what I'm talking about, or what I had discussed, was a completely different dimension. So we have seen it around us, we live it, but we never realized it, that how will this play a futuristic role in our lives. So this new emerging technology is interactive, it is collaborative, it is shared, virtual, and customized digital world. How this will happen? So basically, if I say this is immersive technology, which is nothing but a blend of virtual reality and augmented reality. This is a futuristic topic that we are discussing right now. In a layman term, it defines a parallel virtual world for the collaborators. This has placed digital representation of objects into a physical space. So VR has quickly evolved from lab experiments to staple in the pop culture, entertainment, and media in today's world. Let me give you some examples. There is one of the company called Lowe's in US. They have adapted a virtual reality platform for their customers where they are able to visit and experiment with different materials, lights, and products before making the purchases. Another good example is Shell Games, is a company which provides interactive historical place visits in a virtual reality where the locations are distant and it cannot be visited easily. And another interesting example is of British Army. This is a very interesting example where British Army uses a virtual and mixed reality concepts for recruitment of soldiers, where the joinees can get a real life feeling of armed forces activities in real life before actually getting engaged. So they can make informed decisions for their life. Such platforms and applications could be transformative. For companies, it could allow them to connect with specialized expertise instantly, no matter where they are based in the world. And this could also completely change the way offices processes the work, interactions, and most importantly, removing the cost of redoing anything.
Incidentally, Kashyap is also providing gaming solutions to his companies because he's into the education space. So what probably Kashyap is trying to explain is that tomorrow, I don't see it happening immediately, but in the near future, I can actually be sitting maybe thousands of kilometers away and virtually visit my factory. So I'm actually there seeing the production processes, seeing the product happening. Is that what you're trying to say? So
Yes,
it's a
yes,
simple work
absolutely.
from home, but on a very different level, something like what we saw in the movie Avatar,
Right,
where you
absolutely.
actually you transport yourself to that your own factory.
Right.
Imagine
So
how much time it will save for a lot of processes which don't really require a physical presence there.
right. So I'll relate this to the actual what is happening in today's world. What I mentioned was the future, but in today's world, we are living it. For example, the exhibitions, the conferences, they have become online nowadays. So imagine that I am having a stolen Drupa. Now, instead of actually physically visiting Drupa, I have my all the products and showcases in a gamified model. And actually, there are customers who are visiting me with a 3D with a interactions collaborative in virtual reality. So this is happening today, but we have come of the age already. Such applications are already being used by many companies, and they're also in the news. Just recent past, Unilever has decided that they are going to do WFM, that is work from home, while retaining most of the 40% of their employees and engaging them through by immersing into augmented world. So it is a different futuristic concept that I wanted to share with everyone.
So now in the COVID, in these last 8 to 10 months, has anything changed for Surya? I mean, your name says Surya Offset, but you're doing nothing. I mean, there's no printing at all that is a part of your entire repertoire of your products. So what exactly have you been concentrating in the last 8, 10 months, and where exactly do you see Surya in the next 1, 2, 5, 10 years? Is there something specific? When I asked you, this is for my panelists and also for my audience. So I asked Kashyap, what do you actually do? She said, do you want an answer which can be put on paper, or do you want an answer just for your ears?
Thank you so much, Iqbal bhai.
So I said, Baba, if you tell me, then I'll have to share it with my audience. So he said, okay, then it's better that you don't know. I am making books for the government. And what I am actually more interested in understanding when he talks about the lifestyle of a product. So Kashyap, especially for us who are re-looking at our businesses for post-pandemic, what do we actually look at this feature of yours which says we must all look at the lifestyle of the life cycle of the product? I'm sorry, I'm fumbling. The life cycle of the product. So I'm producing a carton, for example, and Tejas is producing a product and Anuj is producing a label. So when you say that you should be involved in the entire life cycle of the product, please explain. Rajesh, can you please mute yourself? Yes, Kashyap.
Hello. Yes. Your question was that what exactly do I mean, or in context of what you explained about cartons, what exactly it means when we talk about the life cycle of the product. So basically, the life cycle of product is what we do with our customers, and in your context of carton, when we are dealing with pharma companies, it is basically not only engaging oneself into your own business and processes, but actually visiting and understanding from ground up what your customers, how they manage your supplied materials. Not only that, up to its end life cycle, meaning their end clients also. So in context of cartons, if I may, no wonder we are already involved in selecting the papers or type of papers or what type of coating we need. But it does not stop at that, or it does not stop at only printing and supplying and then saying, okay, I'm done with my job. But it is actually having a long-term relationship with a client and sitting with them and understanding the processes, that what set of mind they are coming from, what is their expectation with their end customer. So for a second, if we can talk about development of specialized papers, that is part of a life cycle. Second thing is that alternative of papers. Third thing is that life cycle of their actual products, that how will that interact with the supplied product that we are providing to our customer. Then it would be the security of the product, which I'm sure many printers are already doing. But that is the security is one of the aspects. Then third is that once we have supplied the material over there, what kind of difficulties they have. No doubt that many of the printers, they might be dealing with such things, but also it does not stop at only figuring out that why my cartons are not being used in that machine, or it is providing me a problem, but also working with their manufacturers of the machines, that how can we collaborate. So basically it's creating a whole ecosystem of not only one-to-one, but multi-party, which are also machine manufacturers, paper manufacturers, also software engineers, which provide new life age solutions along with security, and also the end clients, that what are their expectations when they receive the product. So basically, when we talk about life cycle, these are some of the factors that we look at.
Excellent. Excellent. Actually, when I'm speaking to our Mr. Nitin Shah of Award Offset, sometimes when we are chatting, and when I ask him, he's going to the customer's factory, and when I ask him, what is he going there for? So he says, I'm going there to explain to him how to run their bottling plant. So I said, but what has that got to do with your carton? So probably this is what he means by the life cycle of the product. So he doesn't just stop at supplying the carton. So he also wants to know how it is being packed, or where the bottles are coming from, and how the bottle is being inserted into the carton. So what you're saying is, yes, I understand what you're saying.
I would just like to add something to that. See, visiting your clients' factories and engaging with them on their actual problems, which doesn't necessarily come from our supplied material, is also a future opportunity for diversification also. And so also true. That is an opportunity for engaging with your own growth in terms of your own capacity building exercise that you can do at your own factories.
Excellent. Now, I'll just ask you one more question, Kashyap, because I found that pretty interesting when I was talking to you. And then if there is time, I'll come back to you with a couple of more things. We have discussed a lot, and there are lots of things that all my panelists have to share, but unfortunately, time limits me. We were talking about upskilling, and we were talking about how to make things a little better for our existing workers. And you use the word called resource smoothing for your employees. Now, according to me, resource smoothing is probably providing the right kind of tools to your existing employees for their growth. Is there something more to it than just that?
Yes. What you exactly used the word was resource smoothing. Let me correct that word to resource leveling rather than resource smoothing. Resource smoothing usually applies to a large and very organized type of manufacturing processes, where industry like us, printing industry, it is more of resource leveling, where we can upskill the current existing workforce in order to take on more challenges or higher roles. And if we push this forward a notch higher, this pandemic times has provided the correct opportunity to bring in the best of the people, because as many of the panelists said, that senior management was not there, or there were few people in the organization. So this has carved out a new level of leadership that no one knew existed, that absence of me or someone else who would be leading at one time, and we are not there and someone else is doing it in our absence. So that was absolutely amazing. But doing this also brought out a loyalty and reflected a human image of trust that we had never given to them before.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So I'll come back to Kashyap. If we fortunately have the time, we are already running at about 5:25. And I have my final panelist, who in any case speaks the least. So we'll have to now get his point of view. Vivek Khanna of Ajanta Print Arts. Your website says that you are into playing cards and you are into packaging. But when I spoke to you, you said that we are now looking more at food packaging. So was it the pandemic that brought you to this decision, or was it something that has been on the anvil? What has the pandemic changed the way Ajanta now looks at their business?
Hi, everybody. We actually, going back 20 years, were a commercial printer. And then we kind of decided to get into the packaging space. And when we got into the packaging space, we were doing run-of-the-mill stuff, like everything. And we realized that we were competing with many people at multiple industries. And we kind of wanted to chart out an area where we could excel. And food was a great area because we built up a new factory, so we could put new processes, new systems, So we went for standardization like BRC, etc., which kind of helped us work differently than our current competitors, correct? And that in itself gave us good results. And we kept on excelling in that industry. So honestly, that's how we've come into the food packaging space. Has the pandemic changed anything for us? Not really. Um, Things are as they are.
You
There
are
is
a great believer in the India story, you told me. So you feel that investments and nothing else will change. Things will continue like how they were even a year back. So for you, that's all a no-brainer. Your investments, your growth strategy will remain the same irrespective of the last 8 months or 10 months.
I mean, there is a blip, but the outlook is not different. We have, like Anuj, we started a new plant, we're getting new equipment, we're getting ready for the growth. Uh, if you're good and if you are if you have the focus, there is business out there. I don't think there isn't plenty of business out there for all of us.
I repeat, COVID positives. So the discussion with all of you is actually making me and the audience feel that, okay, this the right word you used. It was just a blip. One interesting point you mentioned is that now Ajanta is a lot more conscious about its costs. The pandemic has made you actually revisit all your costs. How important it was for us, how important it is for us today, and how important will this be in the future? Once again, for my audience, these are all cliched statements: customer centricity, looking at cost, do not depend on the same customer, I mean, the same sector, etc., etc., etc. The reason why I bring them out to this panel is because in the last 10 months, you guys haven't changed your systems at all. You have continued on the same pre-decided, pre-worked, beaten path without making any changes, and which is why all these things now are more relevant. So when you're looking at costs, all of us, especially in the packaging sector, had a nightmarish 6-7 months in the beginning. All our costs went up for a toss. None of us had the temerity to ask our customer, "Ke Baba, kuch to bada ke do," because we said, "Baba, they are also in an equal situation." But aaj, every cost is going up. So you think that this very simple funda of looking at costs is going to make us survive the next 2, 10, 20 years?
I mean, cost is extremely important, and more so, like the word someone used was upskilling or multi-skilling. These are going to be aspects which are really going to help us control costs. I'll give you a bit of a brief as to what we've done in Ajanta. We went about implementing an ERP, which we really wanted to do, but I think the pandemic just gave us the time to just go all out at it. And our ultimate aim was to kind of come up with a report card for a customer to state that we have a customer and can we rate that customer? And what does that customer bring to us on the table? Either in terms of revenue, in terms of innovation, in terms of anything strategic that we would really like to have. And then that would be something that we would kind of measure ourselves. And an ERP is something that I really think helped us to do something like this. Are we there yet? We're almost, but an ERP is what really changed our way of looking at things. It gave us numbers, it gave us visibility, it gave everybody a platform. So it was not, a marketing team didn't need to kind of come to someone to say that, should I do this business? Because the numbers kind of said it, that really, is it worth our while doing this business? And if it is, then we shall. And I think anyone who for the next 20 years is going to say costs don't matter, is going to relook at that statement again and again. Costs do matter a lot, and every penny that we save is what's going to keep us fighting fit.
Lovely. I'll go back to Tejas again, because I think we missed out on one question, which was, what according to you, Tejas, is the new normal? Firstly, as compared for just Printman, and for our industry in general. So I would like you to look at all the industries, which is packaging, digital, Flexo. I'm sure you are already in Flexo, you're already in packaging, you're already doing value addition. So first of all, I want you to answer what according to you is the new normal. And there is one more question for you. So please try and be as brief as possible on this. You're on mute, my friend.
What exactly is new normal? It's like telling someone that I'll change my lifestyle, I'll change my working style because you have done something wrong to me. It's like it's making the culprit feel victorious. Rather, our approach should be to meet, to greet, and to defeat. The pandemic has disrupted all our lives, socially, economically, financially. It's been one of the biggest disruption in the human history. We all had our plans chalked down before the pandemic struck. We all have survived this phase, some better than the others. But what we need to do is get back to the drawing board and strategize and devise a plan to first go back to the pre-COVID levels and thereon stick to a plan for the future growth. It's like taking few steps behind to take that leap of faith. As you asked about the other industries, we all have been hearing that this pandemic has disrupted the commercial printers. But wasn't this the case even before the pre-COVID came in? So
I totally agree on this, Tejas. You're right. Actually, we are just blaming the COVID. A lot of companies are blaming COVID for situations which are pre-existent.
So this is the best time for them to devise a plan to move forward. One of the things I could think about is for them is to collaborate. So there are commercial printers in the offset space. There are commercial printers in the digital space. If they get together, they can complement each other wonderfully. It's like thinking out of the box, and the intent should be to survive and not just and to not only to survive but to thrive. So I would like to say, in the initial years, strategy was a commodity. Strategy was a commodity and implementation was skill. Today, I believe strategy is everything and implementation is a choice of technologies, a choice of diversification, a choice of plans. But we must have the ability to innovate through this crisis. That is what I believe.
Yeah, excellent. Kashyap, I believe you are the latest entrant amongst all this entire team of my panelists just now. Now, if there is a youngster who wants to join the business today, do you think he requires any specific skills? Does he require to have something special which will give him an edge? Khali baap ka business hai, ya you are joining your business professionally, ke bhai, things are going to be easy. So if you are joining the business today, post the pandemic, are there any special things that you observed in the last 8-10 months which were never needed and which are now a necessity?
I specifically think that definitely when a person is joining a business, there are a couple of factors that should be kept in mind. First is retention of existing workforce. See, since you're joining family business, that means that there has been a legacy. So it is very important to retain the existing workforce because they know how the business is running and you're new. Second is that since you're new, you have come with a new mindset. Transition and transformation should be aligned to the market demand rather than, I'm a young blood, I'm coming in and I just feel like doing it. Instead of that, it should be meticulously planned and definitely consulted with your father or your family consultants. Second important thing a person should keep in mind is the RROs, that is roles, responsibilities, and opportunities that a person might find, whether they are as in internal customers or with external customers. Then specifically focusing on this pandemic times, contingency plan for the finances. That is very important.
That's really, really important. Yes.
Because we never know how the banks or the government or finance department are going to come up with whatever rules that they come up. Third thing is that it is very important that when you are retaining the workforce or when you are going to start working with the current workforce, educating the workforce of the current pandemic times and also of the emerging world, that what is going to be the demand and how they would have to be realigned to that new demand, which basically brings us back to upskilling. Third is that finding a basically gap analysis of deliverables aligned to clients' expectations. When I'm entering a new person, instead of just flaunting about I'm doing this, I'm doing that, or we are providing best of the products in the market, why don't I sit with the client and find out what is the gaps in my deliveries or in my material? And the last but not the least, as in a long-term perspective, if I am a new entrant, I should be focusing more on the 3 Ps, that is people, process, and planning. So it's a continuous process that one should be constantly balancing between.
You know something, Kashyap, though you mentioned all these points about someone who wants to join the business today, but I think it is even relevant to people who are in the business for the last 20, 30 years.
Absolutely.
The issues don't really change.
Absolutely.
Tejas, you would have something for youngsters who would like to join the business today? Any points which you feel are relevant?
I could share some of my experiences when I got into the business. So first of all, you need to create your own identity.
Very important.
So when
yes.
so when I joined the business, I was very inquisitive to to meet our existing customers, but my father did not allow me. I mean, obviously, young blood, that led to a lot of frustration. Then my father told me, you need to create your own identity. You will be introduced to the customers, but not as Tejas Tanna, but as Tejas Thakkar. So I was being introduced to my customers as Tejas Thakkar, who is a new joinee and is looking after sales and new developments. I used to sit at the customer's place for hours. And finally, I started building the relationship and they started appreciating my work. In fact, when they got to know, they actually called up my dad. Few of them called up my dad and, appreciated my work. So that gave me the confidence from there on to start building new customers. And those are the customers I've been able to build over the period of time. Another thing I would like to, which I couldn't do it, but I would recommend people to do it, is before you join your business, have that 2 to 3 years of work experience, because that will help you to, easier transition to get into your business. That is one important thing which I missed out. Then, as Kashyap rightly said, there has been a lot of efforts which has been put into your business, and it's a foundation which you have got. Please respect that past when you get into the business. It's very important to respect that past. It's very important. It might sound funny, but I think it's very important for the new people to do, new joinees to keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut. When you join the business, observe, listen, and open your mouth only when necessary. Grasp as much as information as possible, because that will help you for your future. One important thing I feel is when you're joining a family managed business is have a top management meeting. 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours a week. You should have one meeting where you have your fathers, your brothers, your uncles. Usually family managed business will have all these people come together, just vent out all your frustration to each other. Nobody is a boss in that meeting room. Vent out all your frustration, come on, iron out all your differences, because when you get out of that room, you should have one vision and one agenda, that is the betterment of your company.
Brilliant.
Also, one last thing I would like to say is, don't be credit hungry. A batsman going on a pitch cannot expect applause for every defensive shot he makes, or cannot expect applause for every ball he leaves. Don't be credit hungry. It will lead to your disappointments. Go and play with your free mind. It's an open field. Play your game and enjoy your game.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tejas. That was really nice. Milap, you
add something?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So this is specifically true from my experience of dealing with various printing companies, and I feel that as printing companies are say, very less impetus to HR as a function. And I feel that that's one of the most important, a very important pillar that we all need to pay attention to. And I think that during this pandemic, a lot of people would have realized who stands with you and who doesn't stand with you. So I think if any new joinee who comes in, I feel other than a lot of business and everything, the two areas they should focus on is also HR and technology. And by technology, I don't necessarily mean technology as is what new machine is coming, what new things are happening, but the world around us is changing. You will have new things happening overnight and make some technologies redundant. So you need to be aware of what's going on. You need to have a bent for technology. Not necessarily you need to know how to code or develop, but you need to be aware of what technology things are happening around you. These two things will be helpful in the long run for people.
Milap, in any case, I was going to come to you for that one specific point which you had mentioned. We have to stop looking at our industry in a traditional way. Now, again, I mean, it's a cliched statement. We all use it very sparingly. But I totally agree with you when you say a thing like that. We always look at our industry in a very traditional way, whereas our industry is one of the most interesting and forward-looking industries ever. But we limit ourselves to being printers. As a matter of fact, the BMPA is trying to create a small wave whereby we want to tell people that we are manufacturers of paper products. We should stop looking at print as just being one of the things that we do. Yeah. I mean, that's a relevant thing now. Why aren't we looking at ourselves as manufacturers? We need to change our mindset. I remember many, many years ago, I was listening to Pranobhai, and Pranobhai said it very clearly. One of the reasons why our customer doesn't look at us as an industry is because we ourselves don't believe that we are an industry. Whenever someone asks us, we call ourselves service providers, we call ourselves as, your partners. We never look at ourselves as a manufacturer of paper products. So are you on the same page as me, or your thought is something different when you say that we should stop looking at our industry in a traditional way?
So I think we ourselves limit our vision in a way. When we go and talk to people, I'm a printer. I remember that, we are a 14-year-old organization, started off with retail printing, Xerox stores, if I may. And what you present is the way people will look at you. So, and I remember when we moved to B2B, we used to go and talk to the lowermost guy in procurement or admin who wants to talk to you, make you wait for hours together. And then these small things, visiting cards, ID cards, nothing. The minute we change our language that we are a technology provider, and I'm now suddenly talking to the head of admin. Okay. The minute we have now moved on to beyond procurement, and I'm now talking to people that, I'm here to help you solve your festive gifting needs, merchandising. I want to talk to the marketing guy. I'm now talking to the CMO of the company. So the way we look at ourselves is the kind of response we're going to get from the customer. So I definitely don't agree that we should look at ourselves as printers, but we are solution providers. We are an industry, whatever we can think we are.
Brilliant. Thank you, gentlemen. I have tons of questions. There are lots of things that I can ask you, and I'm sure my audience will not feel bored because all of you have so much to share. But I'm sorry, we are running out of time. We might have some questions. I don't know whether we'll be able to take any questions. I'll take a few minutes just to summarize what all of us have just spoken about. When I started looking at this subject of COVID positives, I'm one of those who has been extremely positive in the last 8 months. There has been ample business, as every one of you strongly believe. We have found out employees which have made a huge difference to our productivity. So I am seeing that there are a few things that are common amongst all of us and which make us positives. COVID has been, as Vivek has given us the correct word for it, been a blip. We have to grow out of that, keep on moving ahead. A few points which all of us agree without any doubt. Number one, customers. Customer centricity, get rid of customers who don't seem to be paying you what you deserve. Look for additional things which makes the customer's life easy, whether that means going closer to the customer, whether that means trying to find out what else he needs apart from, sort of doing the same as Tejas said, carton ke saath mein leaflet bhi lag ke aa raha hai, bottle ke upar label lag ke aa raha hai, customer. Second, and the most important, which all of us have implemented and which we all think is extremely relevant, is our employees and their upskilling. Whether we call it upskilling, whether, as Kashyap said, smoothing the resources or leveling the resources, all of us have agreed without any doubt that our people are what have kept us alive, successful, and thrive. They've made us thrive. We alone couldn't have done anything. Whether it is Milab sitting from home and being able to control his workers who were part of his office or even from their homes, or whether Anuj, who actually physically went down on the machine and got people to understand how to operate all the machines, whether it was Denver or Vivek or Tejas or myself, who actually understood that there are few people who are the lifeline. The senior people are relevant, but it's the juniors, the people who wanted this opportunity to make the best of this pandemic, who have turned out to be new leaders. Most of us are on the ERPs. We are relying on data. We believe that doing the right kind of data farming is going to help us. You cannot live without data in the current times. This pandemic has proved to us that your data shows you your productivity. It shows you which customers to retain, which not to retain. And most importantly, whether we need to be in the business in the first place. It has proved to us without any doubt that we need to. And it's the data. All of us who are still relying on instincts, who are still relying on mom and pop thoughts, have to get back to understanding how to use the data that their own company is able to generate. One common thing that all of us have experienced is positivity, which is why this session has been called COVID Positives. Whenever I spoke to you, whenever we had the chance to speak either as a group or as one-to-one, what has been wonderful is the amount of positivity. All of you, without any doubt, never spoke about not investing any further. None of you spoke about the customer not being good enough, the employees not being good enough, the India story not being good enough. So what is required now for the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years is positivity. When I started my business, and I asked my father, I said, do I need to join this business? And as they just said, I worked out in a Pranav's company called Printwell for about 2-3 years, and then I joined my business. My father just asked me a single question. If you can see yourself doing the same work for the next 25 years, get into it. So today, if any young man wants to get into this business today, he has to look at whether the next 25 years is what is going to excite him. Now, 25 years with the same product, and as they say, the only thing constant today is change. We need to be now ready for a lot of these pandemics, whether that pandemic is through a virus, whether it's a financial pandemic, whether it's an employee pandemic, or certain products which just simply die out one fine day. We need to be ready. This pandemic has taught us you can't take things for granted. You can't take cost for granted. And last but not least, the beautiful India story. Whether we like it or not, whether China likes it or not, whether our neighbors like it or not, let me tell you a very simple thing. India is gonna shine. Whether anybody likes it or not, by 2030, we are going to be a power to reckon with. And what India needs is these brilliant set of positive gentlemen who are going to not only inspire others, but make everything positive. So thank you, gentlemen. I will now go to Fahim. If he has any questions, please do that. I don't know whether we have the time. We have just barely 10 minutes. But I once again thank all of you to have been a part of this session. And I'm definitely going to be speaking to you just to inspire myself the day I feel that there is nothing to look forward to. Thank you, gentlemen.
Great. We've got 2 questions, Iqbal. One is from Tushar Bhotika, who asks everyone, all the panelists, Denver's statement about the old clients being the lowest profit givers, and we should change them, is very disturbing or daring. And what if our clients also thought the same way and they start looking for new vendors? Because we've been old vendors to them.
They always do. They don't stay loyal. So I don't know whether Tushar believes that a customer is so loyal that he doesn't want to go. They're always looking out for. But anyway, I will let Denver answer that. Denver, it's over to you.
Actually, I did reply to Mr. Tushar the same thing that you said. They're always looking for new suppliers, and if they don't, then they're a good customer. Please keep them. and they will give you a fair price. One more thing that I missed saying last time is that if you look at your customers and you see the customers that are giving you a decent margin, these are the customers whom you are making a very big impact on, and therefore they give you that margin. You should just look back at them and see who are the customers whom you're making an impact on, and this is the customer who will be with you forever because you are making the impact on them and not the other way around. And that is something I forgot to mention last time. So
Well said, Denver. Well said. Yes, Kashyap.
I just want to add to what Denver said. I mean, no disrespect to anyone. This is just my personal view. One question, Iqbal bhai, you asked me regarding that when you're entering the family business, and I think this has direct relevance to what the question was asked. That shall we let go of the old clients who are not, meeting our bottom lines? What I have realized is that it is an investment cost. It's not about the numbers. So if you're coming in with a new blood and if you're only about numbers, yes, you can look at it that way. But these customers, you can think that of as an investment cost for your future references and businesses, because that's what I have realized and that is what I have experienced also. That even though there are some clients who are just chipping in nothing, basically, not even something, but they give you much more bigger, big ticket clients that you would have never thought of, because it's a very small world. Everyone knows everyone. So providing a good service is very important. Yes, numbers are important and I don't deny it, but it should be balanced and it should be catered to it very carefully.
I'll just add one small thing for him to this. Of course, Denver is looking at numbers and he's right in his own way. But I used to do work for a particular customer who used to make kajal, and there was a particular black which they had been importing from Germany for about 70, 80 years. And when I was speaking to him, he told me that company has stopped making this particular black waxy pigment about 30 years back. This particular customer is the only one in the world who still buys from him. They've kept a couple of machines only to service this one guy. I'm sure there is no way in heaven that product could be cost effective for the German company. But as Kashyap rightly said, because generations have changed the last 70, 80 years, but they've realized, okay, there is this one small customer based in Vasai in India who still buys this and he's only willing to he's willing to pay whatever price is there. So, well, there are different points. Yes, Kashyap?
Iqbal bhai, I think you specifically said that German company, right? So even in our context, when we talk about our machineries, we are using German machineries. Even in today's times, when you go to Heidelberg or someone, you say you have 1942 machinery, I'm sure they will have some sort of documentation on it that they will be able to support us with. So that is the loyalty of a brand that when you serve someone, you get that response back.
Yes, Fahim, is there a second question?
On the same question, any other comments from other panelists? Otherwise,
Fahim, my panelists are so wonderful that they can speak on this for a couple of hours. So you better change the question.
Quickly, the next question is then directed to Kashyap. This is from Nitin Shah, and he asks that how can a print house adopt work from home, especially in India? Practically today, all big multinational employees are also fed up of working at home. Practically in India, how is it possible to adopt this concept when most of the employees are traveling from small towns or cities or sharing accommodations, and also the IT support is poor? So do you envisage this work from home actually happening in India?
Right. So when we talk about this virtual offices and working from home, this is a futuristic concept. Again, when we are talking about specifically manufacturing and those large industries, it is not geared towards manufacturing, but it is more to do with business developments, marketing, and related activities. But yes, India does have infrastructure challenges. We ourselves are into technologies. If I may take the opportunity, we have utilized the cloud leverage on which we have hosted more than 500,000 people in a single session. The reason I'm sharing this with you is that just to counter that, yes, India does have challenge, but at the same time, India also has the leverage and infrastructure in place that when it's required, it can be utilized if it is channeled properly. But again, the virtual offices and those platforms are for marketing development purposes. And Indian companies also, as I mentioned, such as Unilever and those companies have immersed into virtual meetings in terms of marketing and other non-production workforce working on these platforms.
You have something to add, Milap?
Yeah, I do. So I feel personally, I mean, the biggies, of course, have announced that they're going to work from home for a long time. There is no binary. It's not like everybody work from home or everybody comes to office. I feel that we're going to come to something called flexi hours or flexi working. Even a small company like me with only about 110 employees, as we are reopening, our office people who are going to start coming from 1st of Feb, a few divisions like my marketing, my customer sales people who are facing customers, we have asked them not to come to office. We've told them we're going to take you maybe a couple of months down the line. But you know what? If they are feeling bad, no, I want to come and meet somebody, I want to come once in a week to meet you, they're most welcome to do so. So I somewhere feel that there's going to be, see, production is irreplaceable. You cannot have production working from home. However, a lot of office people, we will definitely find people to move to a normal somewhere in the middle. See, nobody wanted, in our printing industry, it was impossible. Even when I tell people I've not gone to office more than 3 times, they're amazed. But COVID has made this experience available to a lot of us forcefully. We've all been forced to try it. Now, I 100% believe that if any one of us has to go one day from morning to evening to Bangalore for a meeting, first we will try, sir, video call hoga kya? Let's finish it off. Previous to COVID, nobody would have tried that.
That's true.
So I believe somewhere we'll reach a midway consensus for this, and it's not going to be either or.
Yes, Anuj?
See, the question talks about technology and whether we would do it. I mean, if we look at it, we've all been using CCTV cameras for at least 10 years. And here or there, we have been watching our facility, on cameras through our phones or through our laptops or, sitting in our cubicles versus, and watching the production floor. To me, that's working from home. That's remote working, and we've been doing it. And so we've done it, like, in the new facility, there's a large screen and you can see, you can talk to people live, you press a button and you're like standing live. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
So I guess the hybrid approach is the right one. Wherever possible, wherever virtual makes sense, wherever it's convenient, it'll happen. Good. So on that positive note, shall we end this, Iqbal Bhai? I've got 2 announcements to be made.
Thank you, Fahim. Please, I once again thank all my panelists and the wonderful audience. So please, Fahim, you can close this now.
Great. So before I thank everybody who've made this possible, I just want to make 2 announcements. We've got 2 upcoming sessions. One is a very, very interesting one. On the 29th of January at 7:30 p.m., we've decided that enough of work and now let's play. So again, I repeat, 29th of January, 7:30 p.m., we have a mentalist, Mr. Praveen Pandita. He's been featured on Ripley's Believe It or Not. So it's going to be a great fun session. Please do mark your diaries for this. 29th January, 7:30 p.m. It's for you and your family and your friends. So do share the Zoom invite when it comes to you. We'd like as many people as possible to attend this. The next session that we've planned, coming back to work after a little bit of play, is on the 26th of February at 3:30 p.m. I'll repeat that, 26th of February at 3:30 p.m. We've named this session Great Expectations. Very, very relevant and important session for the packaging industry specifically. We've got buyers of packaging, specifically Cipla Healthcare, Reliance Retail, and ITC Foods. And they're going to be telling us as to what they expect from the packaging players in the next 3 to 5 years. This session is going to be moderated by Tejas Tanna of Printman. And we're going to have Komori launch a new machine also during this session. So keep your dates ready for these 2 things, 29th of January as well as 26th of February. This brings us to the end of the session. Firstly, I'd like to thank Lakshmi Adhesives and Coatings, Rajesh Banerjee and Manan Bang for associating with us and making this possible. I want to thank all the 6 panelists over there and Iqbal Bhai specifically for taking time out, talking to all of them and giving us so much pearls of wisdom from them. And if you guys have any other questions which are unanswered, or you feel you want to specifically ask something to somebody, please do write into us at office@bmpa.org, ORG that is, and we'd be most happy to direct your questions to these panelists and get you your answers. So thank you, everybody. Great evening and have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.